OPEC Plus members will be meeting this Sunday to talk about production levels. A small output increase for December is widely expected. Price of crude oil right now just around $60 a barrel, been down about 16% just since the start of the year. Joining us right now with more on the energy markets is Helima Croft, RBC Capital Markets Global Head of Commodity Strategy, also a CNBC contributor. And Helima, what are you anticipating we'll hear from OPEC Plus this weekend?
Well, we're expecting when the voluntary producers and OPEC meet that they're going to do another 137,000 barrel a day increase for December, basically what they did for the last couple of months. Now, we think that headline number, though, does not actually reflect the number of barrels coming onto the market from OPEC. We think it's going to be potentially half of that because basically at this point, almost all the OPEC plus producers have maxed out. The only spare capacity of meaningful volumes is really sitting in Saudi Arabia. So the question is, for a market that has been very concerned about the stories about oil on the water, potential supply glut situation, is potentially 70 to 80,000 coming out of Saudi and a bit from UAE going to spook the market. I would say, though, that we have to pay very close attention to what is happening on the sanctions front. How serious is the U.S. going to be about enforcing these new sanctions on Russian oil producers, and pay attention to what's happening with the military buildup in Venezuela?
And with all of that in mind, OPEC Plus is going to be more reluctant to really get out ahead of that, you think, just with the sanctions and where they stand?
100%. I mean, Becky, we had a situation in 2018 when the U.S. exited the Iranian nuclear agreement, and we asked OPEC to ramp up production. We essentially said, we're taking Iran to zero, and OPEC came forward with a 1 million barrel a day increase at that summer meeting, only to have us turn around in the fall and issue exemptions for importers of Iranian oil, tanking the price of oil. So I do think OPEC's going to adopt a watch and wait to see really what the degree of enforcement is going to be on these blocking sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil.
Helima, you are all over the place. You've been traveling, I think, right now you're in Abu Dhabi. Where were you just before this?
Everything. The G7 Energy Ministerial is actually taking place in Toronto as we're talking right now. And Ukraine is a big focus of that conversation, the efforts of the G7 to tighten sanctions on Russia, to go after the shadow fleet. So it is all sort of coming together. I think it's also going to be a conversation in Abu Dhabi on the sidelines. What does the supply picture look like for next year? How serious is the U.S. about enforcing these sanctions? And again, people are paying very close attention to what is happening in Venezuela. This is a very significant U.S. military buildup off the coast of Venezuela. We continue to target these small boats, saying they are drug boats. The question is, are we pursuing a regime change operation against the Maduro government there?
All right, let me throw another one at you. We've got two of the big majors, Chevron and ExxonMobil, both out with their earnings today. We're going to be talking to Darren Woods from Exxon in just a few minutes. And we spoke earlier with Mike Wirth from Chevron. Mike Wirth told me that he thinks that oil prices are probably going to be down from here. At least that's what most people he's talking to say. Do you hear the same thing?
Well, I think Becky, right now, you have on the one hand, a group of analysts, producers saying we're going to be oversupplied for, the first quarter for next year, pointing to production coming out of a country like Guyana, the big Exxon story. On the other hand, you have national oil company heads like Amin Nasser from Aramco just speaking at the FII in Saudi Arabia, talking about the fact that he believes that demand is strong. And the big wild card, or two big wild cards, will Chinese buying for their strategic petroleum reserve continue at current levels? That has been providing, some of the strong demand has been Chinese SPR buying. But also, again, what is the rigor of enforcement going to be on these sanctions? Rosneft and Lukoil account for half of Russia's exports. If we are serious about forcing companies like Reliance to basically give up their deals with Rosneft, if we're going to force companies like Çırpas in Turkey to give up importing from Rosneft, we could be facing, a supply outage when it comes from Russia. I mean, are we talking potentially about 1 million to 1.5 million of Russian barrels unable to find a home? It will all come down to how serious the United States is about really enforcing these measures.